Right now, somewhere in your home, a small predator is lying on a soft cushion. It is sleeping peacefully. It has lost almost all of its wild instincts. Its jaw has shrunk, its brain has decreased in size, and it relies completely on you for food. You look at it and you call it your best friend. How did a terrifying apex predator that once hunted your ancestors across freezing glacial tundras turn into a creature that wears little sweaters and sleeps at the foot of your bed? The standard story you were taught in school goes something like this. A brave Stone Age hunter walked into the dark forest, found a helpless orphaned wolf pup, brought it back to the campfire, and trained it to hunt. It sounds like a heartwarming story. It sounds logical. It is almost certainly completely wrong. When evolutionary geneticists like Gregor Larson examined the DNA of modern dogs and ancient wolves, they discovered something astonishing. Humans did not intentionally tame wolves. We were not smart enough, patient enough, or safe enough to carry out a multi-generation selective breeding program 30,000 years ago. Instead, wolves tamed themselves. Or more accurately, ancient humans set an evolutionary trap without ever realizing it, and the boldest wolves walked right into it. To understand how this happened, you have to travel back 30,000 years into the height of the last glacial maximum. The world was cold, brutal, dark, and utterly unforgiving. Your ancestors lived in small nomadic hunter-gatherer bands, following herds of mammoth, reindeer, and bison across a frozen landscape. Every single day was a battle for survival. Every night, your tribe built a fire. Fire meant heat. Fire meant protection from the darkness. Fire also created something else that changed the trajectory of the planet forever. Fire created garbage. When your ancestors butchered a massive animal, they could not eat everything. They cracked bones for marrow, threw away tough cartilage, discarded thick skin, and left massive piles of rotting meat scraps just outside the perimeter of their camp. To a starving wild animal in a freezing Ice Age winter, that garbage pile was not trash. It was an endless high-calorie buffet. Now imagine you are an ancient wolf. Hunting wild prey is dangerous and exhausting. A single kick from a bison can shatter your ribcage and leave you to starve in the freezing snow. Chasing down a fleet-footed deer burns massive amounts of precious energy that you might never regain. Yet here, sitting at the edge of the woods, is a pile of fresh meat that does not fight back and does not run away. There was only one problem. Standing next to that meat pile were noisy bipedal creatures holding sharp spears and throwing burning embers. Most wild wolves stayed far away. Their flight distance, the physical distance an animal maintains between itself and a perceived threat, was massive. If a human stepped within 100 yards, the wolf turned and sprinted into the shadows. Fear was their greatest survival instinct. Fear kept them alive for millions of years, until a rare genetic mutation occurred. In every population of wild animals, there is natural variation in temperament and stress thresholds. Some wolves were slightly less fearful than others. Some wolves had a slightly lower stress response when smelling human scent or hearing human voices. While the cautious wolves starved in the deep forest during harsh, relentless winters, the slightly bolder wolves crept closer to the human camps under the cover of darkness. They ate the discarded bones, they survived the winter, and they passed their calm, low-fear genes on to their offspring. Generation after generation, a unique natural experiment was unfolding on the edges of prehistoric camps. Humans were not picking these animals, the garbage pile was picking them. Cognitive scientist Brian Hare at Duke University refers to this process as survival of the meekest. The wolves that were aggressive towards humans were instantly impaled by spears. The wolves that were too terrified never got close enough to eat. Only the individuals with a very specific psychological profile survived, those curious enough to approach but calm enough not to attack. Over centuries, this continuous selection pressure began to physically alter the animals from the inside out. And this is where the story takes a truly mind-bending turn. In the mid-20th century, a Soviet geneticist named Dmitry Belyaev decided to test this exact principle in a famous experiment with wild silver foxes.
Belyaev took wild, aggressive foxes and selected them for only one single trait: tameability towards humans. He did not train them, he did not teach them tricks, he simply took the top 10% of foxes that showed the least aggression towards human hands and bred them together. The results shocked the scientific world. Within just 10 generations, the foxes began seeking out human attention, wagging their tails and licking the researchers' faces. Their behavior changed dramatically. What surprised scientists even more was what happened to their physical bodies. Even though Belyaev only bred the foxes for behavior, their physical appearance began to change automatically. Their dark fur developed white patches, their sharp, erect ears drooped and became flocky, their tails curled over their backs, their muzzles became shorter and broader, their teeth grew smaller. Why would breeding an animal for tameness change the shape of its ears or the color of its coat? The answer lies in a tiny group of embryonic stem cells called the neural crest. When an embryo develops, neural crest cells migrate throughout the body, forming adrenal glands, jaw bones, cartilage, and pigment cells in the skin. Adrenal glands produce adrenaline, the chemical responsible for fear and aggression. When you select an animal for low fear, you are selecting for reduced neural crest cell activity. With fewer neural crest cells, the animal produces less adrenaline, making it extraordinarily calm. As a side effect, there are also fewer neural crest cells to stiffen the cartilage in the ears, leading to floppy ears. There are fewer cells to produce pigment, leading to white spots on the coat. There are fewer cells to elongate the jaw, leading to shorter snouts. This phenomenon is known as the domestication syndrome. Without knowing anything about genetics, ancient humans had triggered this exact cascade of biological changes in wild wolves simply by leaving their dinner scraps outside their tents. The wild wolf was disappearing. In its place, a brand new creature was emerging, one that never existed on Earth before. As these proto-dogs hung around human camps, a strange symbiosis began to form between two completely different apex predators. Humans realized these semi-tame carnivores were actually useful. With their extraordinarily sensitive hearing and sense of smell, they could detect approaching cave lions, mammoths, or hostile rival tribes long before human senses could pick them up. When danger approached, the proto-dogs growled or barked, acting as a living, breathing perimeter alarm system. In return, humans threw them larger portions of meat and offered them safety within the firelight. Eventually, the barrier between the campfire and the dark forest dissolved completely. The animals moved inside the circle of light. They slept next to human children to keep them warm on freezing Ice Age nights. They ran alongside human hunters, using their incredible stamina to track down wounded prey that humans could not catch alone. Anthropologist Angela Perry found archaeological evidence of ancient dogs buried with great care alongside human companions over 14,000 years ago, long before humans ever domesticated horses, cows, or agricultural crops. In some graves, dogs were buried with necklaces made of deer teeth or positioned as if they were curled up asleep next to their owners. They were not viewed as livestock or tools. They were buried with profound love and respect. Geneticist Pontus Skoglund and his colleagues analyzed ancient canine genomes and found that dogs had already split into distinct genetic lineages across the globe by the end of the Ice Age. This means our partnership with dogs was so ancient that it predates recorded history, predates cities, predates writing, and predates farming itself. As thousands of years passed, the biological connection between humans and dogs grew even deeper, altering both species on a cellular level. When you look into the eyes of a modern dog, your brain releases a massive surge of oxytocin, the exact same bonding hormone that floods a mother's brain when she looks at her newborn baby. Remarkably, the dog's brain releases the exact same wave of oxytocin at the exact same time. No other animal on Earth does this with humans. If you stare into the eyes of a chimpanzee, our closest living relative, it perceives the eye contact as a direct threat. If you stare into the eyes of a wild wolf, it will either feel challenged or threatened. Only dogs have evolved the unique neurological capacity to use eye contact as a mechanism for emotional attachment with a completely different species. In fact, dogs developed a specific facial muscle that wolves do not possess, the levator anguli oculi medialis. This muscle allows dogs to raise their inner eyebrows, making their eyes look larger, sadder, and strikingly human-like. Scientists call them puppy dog eyes. It's a specialized evolutionary trick designed specifically to hack your mammalian nurturing instincts. You think you are taking care of your dog because you choose to. In reality, tens of thousands of years of mutual evolution have rewired your brain chemistry to care for them automatically. We didn't just domesticate an animal, we invited a wild predator into our family, and it reshaped our biology just as much as we reshaped theirs. So tonight, when you look at that small predator sleeping peacefully on your soft cushion, remember what you are really looking at. You are looking at 30,000 years of accidental evolution.